I would imagine that some of you out there are probably feeling a bit frustrated that there doesn't seem to be any guidance as to what to do next. We have an incoming Trump administration that is promising a fascist takeover of our government, and it seems like the Democratic Party, the Harris campaign, even our elected officials have been kind of radio silent. So today, let's take a look at a few action items that we can take on a personal level that can help us contend with this incoming fascist administration. But first, if you want to support independent progressive media and help me make it to 1,000 subscribers, please do remember to hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to make it to 1,000 before the end of the year, and I would very much appreciate your support. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was a bit frustrated that it's been pretty radio silent ever since the election. There doesn't seem to be anybody with any answers at all as far as what the Democrats are doing to try to combat the incoming Trump administration. I haven't heard from many people at all about the individual steps we can take to try to contend with what the incoming administration wants to do. But David Pakman recently had on Andrea Chalupa, and she actually laid out some very concrete action items that we can take today that are not only going to help us stay sane, but to stay engaged. So let's go ahead and take a look at her first recommendation, and she's talking about being the most productive and your most creative self over the next handful of years.
And so you don't have to be a great novelist. You don't have to be a poet like he was, but you do have to have that something inside of you that maybe you felt as a child. Maybe it's a very private part of yourself, a part that gets you out of bed in the morning, like some larger dream that you have. Maybe it's a dream that you don't even dare speak to those closest to you. It could be even, you dream of doing comedy, you dream of doing stand-up, you dream of traveling. Whatever your inner dream is, we need that from you now more than ever, because we are up against a confederacy of trolls. They're going to be deliberately trying to psyops us, like basically demoralize us. They're going to threaten us with lawsuits. Bannon already is coming out with threats against lower level MSNBC producers. Like, I'm going to go after all of you. I'm going to make you, force you back in the homes with your families. You're going to be broke. They're going to be doing that against all of us across the board because they get off on it. And so the anecdote to that, the way to push back is find your historical mentors, find your creative projects, and commit to building something of lasting value in these coming years.
Now, I think this is great advice, and we all know that she is correct when she says that the MAGA movement is going to be looking to bully us. They're going to be looking to tear us down. So we need to figure out ways to inoculate ourselves from some of those attacks. And finding something that you are good at, finding something that you want to pursue, whether that be painting, whether that be writing a book, whether that be, writing music, whatever it may be, figure out a way for you to devote some brain power to these endeavors to help inoculate yourself against these fascist assholes. This is great, great advice. Not only can you do creative endeavors, but maybe you wanted to start a small business endeavor. Me personally, I want to double down on this channel and try to build it up as big as I can, because I think it could be an effective tool to push back against the incoming fascist administration. So find something that you want to do and go for it. This is going to be a great way to keep yourself busy over the next handful of years, and maybe a way to inoculate yourself from some of the heinous stuff that is inevitably coming our way. Let's go ahead and take a look at her second recommendation, and she talks about getting involved with pro-democracy groups, whether that be on a national level or maybe you've got local mutual aid groups that you can tap into as well.
In Ukraine, what overthrew Yanukovych was a diverse grassroots coalition. In Ukraine, they have a political party called Self-Reliance, and that's the model we have to follow here at home. It's self-reliance. So there's a lot of brilliantly self-reliant groups that have been doing incredible work in some of these Republican hostage states. So that is Black Voters Matter, right? Which is, Black people have no choice but to fight. Like, the whole history against authoritarianism in America has been led by Black people, namely Black women. And then we have a wonderful organization called Run for Something, which helps progressives, young people, get into the system to become the new leaders. That did not exist when I was coming up in the world. My first job out of college as a community organizer, I was told to go stand in the streets and register people to vote. Today, coming out of college, I could be recruited to run for office. That's new. That's a political sea change in America. So setting up automated donations to groups like Black Voters Matter and Run for Something, doing that now, $5, $10, whatever you can give a month, just setting it, that is going to allow those organizations to build their funds so they can start staffing up now for the fights ahead.
Again, this is another great piece of advice. If you can find groups that you're interested in, maybe they're pro-democracy groups, maybe they're local groups, if you're able to donate to them, that's going to allow them to start staffing up. That's going to allow them to fight harder on different fronts that you might not be able to, whatever it may be. It's also going to allow you to find common cause with the people who are in these groups. So I think this is another great piece of advice. There are so many organizations all over the country that are going to be fighting back against this Trump administration, so we need to figure out a way to get involved with those groups and join the fight. So I'm sure there are I haven't done any particular research on Black Voters Matter or the Run for Something groups that she mentioned, but I'm sure there are great websites out there to do the proper research to find the groups that you want to contribute to. And she also mentioned running for something, whether that's on a local level, maybe you want to run for a House seat, whatever it may be. That is another great way to fight back against the incoming Trump administration. We want to unseat as many people as we possibly can with pro-democracy candidates. So running for something is a great way to do that if you think that that is something that you are going to be good at. Let's go ahead and move on to her more creative piece of advice here. This one was a little bit interesting to me. She says, adopt a kleptocrat. Let's go ahead and see what she means by that.
And so another thing I'm calling on people to do on Gaslit Nation is adopt a kleptocrat. There's going to be a cabinet of billionaires in Donald Trump's White House. Adopt one of those guys. Put Google alerts on for that person's name. Create a folder where you save the PDFs of articles investigating them. Become a historian of their crimes, of rolling back life-saving regulations and so on. Amplify what they're doing. Just become an expert in that one person. Why does that matter? Because number one, that'll scare the hell out of them if we're that organized and that focused. Number two, by amplifying their crimes, you'll also be amplifying the groups trying to stop them and building power and visibility for those groups that in turn turn into donations. So
now, I thought this was a very interesting piece of advice. Not one that I don't think I've ever heard this before. But we all know that the incoming Trump administration is being staffed up with a whole bunch of billionaires. There is corruption everywhere. So I think it might be a good idea if everybody picks one person from the Trump administration and become an expert on that person and put all of their misgivings, all of their bad deeds, all of their crimes on blast. That is going to be a good way to push back against this fascist administration. And if we have, people all over the country that have picked a kleptocrat and are constantly putting their stuff on blast, this might be an effective way to shut some of their bad behavior down. I don't know. It's worth a shot. I think maybe that's something that we can try to do here on this channel. If you have a particular suggestion as to which kleptocrat we should adopt here on this channel, go ahead and let me know in the comments. But I think it's a decent idea. Become an expert on these billionaires and put their bad behavior on blast. We'll go ahead and look at one more piece of advice. I think this one is a bit of a no-brainer for most people, but let's not forget we're human. Let's be good people. Let's strive to be good to others. Let's have compassion. We don't want to turn into the assholes that we are fighting against, because when many of the people get fed up with this fascist Trump administration, they're going to need somewhere to turn to. So let's make sure that we are being good people. Let's go ahead and take a look at what she had to say.
If you have your commitment that no matter how dark it gets, you know who you are. You know what your values are. You are committed to staying human no matter what. You are committed to being brave no matter what, just like your mentors who came before you in history. Okay. Just know who you are. That's number one. And you will not lose that. Hold on to that humanity. And I'm telling you, as someone who has studied dictatorships past and present, we in the United States still live in a luxurious situation as far as our rights go. I know it doesn't feel that way because we've lost so much since the Reagan Revolution in this country, and the income inequality has exploded, and that is what has contributed to the rise in fascism. There's three factors that contribute to the rise in fascism: massive income inequality, political instability, which we saw with January 6th, and Republicans having an all-out assault on voting rights across this country, and rampant disinformation, as we're seeing with the rise of social media and oligarch consolidation of media, like David Zaslav and so on. And so the bottom line is this: we have so much working for us that we have to not take for granted. We have a luxurious situation as far as Ukrainians are concerned.
And what she said there at the end is very important to notice. We have a lot of things going for us here in the United States. We don't have to worry about missiles being lobbed over our head. We don't have to worry about bomb shelters like they do over in Ukraine. Even though many of our rights have been rolled back over the last handful of years, we still have a lot going for us. We still have institutions in place that might be able to help us to push back against these fascist intentions. So let's take stock of that. Let's not forget that. Let's be thankful for all of the good that we do have. And let's not forget to be good people. Let's be decent people. Let's have compassion. Let's not turn into the jerks that we're fighting against. Like I said before, we want to make sure that we are leading by example in every possible way. That way, when, people get tired of this MAGA movement, and many of them will get tired of the cruelness and the nastiness all the time, they're going to want good, decent humans to turn to. So let's lead by example. Let's not forget our humanity. Let's call out MAGA in a way that makes sense without being total dickheads all the time. We can do it. We can be compassionate humans while still fighting back against this incoming fascist administration. Something we should definitely strive to do. So I thought all of these different pieces of advice were a good place to start. Like I said, it's been pretty radio silent from the Democratic Party, from the Harris campaign, from our elected leaders. I really want to know what our elected leaders are doing right now to combat the incoming Trump administration. Does anybody really know? Does anybody have a good answer to that question? But if you want to focus on yourself and things that you can do in this moment, I think this was a really good place to start. I will try to remember to link the full interview in the video description. I highly recommend you go listen to the whole thing. There are other pieces of advice that I wasn't able to get to, but I think this gives us a good starting point. And maybe I'll do a follow-up if you guys thought that this was helpful. So I will leave it there for now. If you guys got anything out of this video, please remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. Like I said, I am trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. I'm in my final stretch with less than 60 to go, so I would very much appreciate your support. If you want to see Megyn Kelly have a complete and total meltdown over Caitlin Clark's white privilege comments, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.